Hello and welcome to the final practice session ahead of tomorrow's second leg in the knockout stages of the UEFA Champions League. My name is Tyler Goff and I'll guide you through the roughly first 15 minutes or so of today's practice session. Of course, the team will be out any moment now. In the first leg, it did see Rome grab the win at home, of course, due to that penalty in the second half. However, of course, still the stats do point positively for our Bayern side because, of course, we do remember the incredible run that we've had in Champions League home matches. And because of our first place finish back in Group A of the group stages, we did get that right of hosting that second game back at home at the Allianz Arena. And of course, in the past 13 times that we've had Champions League action at the Allianz, it's been 10 wins and 3 draws, unbeaten in that run. And if we do take a look at the last 22 matches, all the way since the start of the 2019-2020 season, it's been 18 wins, 3 draws, and only 1 loss. So obviously, the cards are there. They're there to be played. If you followed the press conference earlier with Thomas Tuchel and Matthias de Ligt, it was quite clear from the two of them that obviously the team is in good spirits, even after that result on the weekend, which saw Freiburg come out in their best way that we've seen them in quite a while, considering their recent spell. I think we're all looking forward to seeing how that goes down. Of course, Servus und herzlich willkommen to the broadcast here today from Säbener Straße. As you can see, the team's not out there just yet. It's going to be very interesting to see. Of course, most players should be available for this final practice session. Thomas Tuchel was quite clear about that earlier in the press conference. Of course, there is still a couple of players that might join for today's practice session that they could end up being on the bench, but wouldn't be real options for the game. Of course, on Leroy Sané, there was quite clear that the option is there for him to play, that he participated in the practice sessions yesterday as well. And even though there hasn't really been any games recently where he's played pain-free, it seems to be at a manageable level that we're all looking forward to maybe getting a couple of minutes out of him. And then, of course, regarding Gnabry, he was quite clear as well, saying that with his injury and with the way that he was out for quite a while, he's not really sure that he'll be part of the squad. But yeah, he might see himself on the bench for that game, maybe as an option, all depending on a one-on-one between the two of them to kind of decide on how the current status is at. So yeah, I mean, welcome to the stream. I can see a lot of you guys already in the chat. As always, of course, we'll try to go through a couple of things, a couple of stats that, of course, are going to be relevant for tomorrow's match. I'll be in the Allianz Arena tomorrow as well to bring you guys coverage on our free web radio service for that game. Of course, starting just ahead of kickoff, we will have full coverage as we do for all of our game. There you can see the first players already heading out. And yeah, of course, they've been very busy. If you've been following our coverage over on fcbayern.com, there have already been prior practice sessions today. And yeah, generally the players do work on their fitness in their own time as well here at Säbener Straße. Compared to our usual public practice sessions, of course, it's just kind of a look into that final practice session ahead of that Champions League game tomorrow, rather than where we usually take you guys along for the entire session for an hour or so. This is more just about talking a little bit about what we're expecting for tomorrow, getting a couple of your guys' thoughts as well. Maybe I'll see some of you guys at the Allianz tomorrow, or hopefully have you along for our coverage, as of course it will all be heating up throughout the afternoon as we are used to. Of course, Champions League action, always a blast to be involved in. It's something different to be out in midweek under the floodlights, especially at the Allianz Arena. However, of course, our guests also have had a pretty good season in the Champions League. Yes, they might not have been as strong in the local league, in the Serie A, and of course did have a very interesting game against Milan just now on the weekend that saw them get, I think, 3 red cards, if not mistaken, and also conceding a goal and ultimately losing the game. However, of course, Lazio do have a history and do have a long history in that regard, comparable to our squad as well. However, of course, it is only going to be the 60th Champions League match for Lazio, whilst Bayern tomorrow will have, I think, number 384. So certainly more club experience, of course, in the Champions League for our side. I already talked about a couple of the stats that we're expecting, especially when it comes down to home matches. And of course, in the past 12 times we were at this stage of the round of 16 in the Champions League, only one of those did see us eliminated. That was back in 2018-19 up against Liverpool FC, who ended up winning that year's league as well. So, yeah, I think stats are pretty strong on our side. Yes, that might not be reflectant of what we've seen too much this season, because of course it has been a lot of games that might have ended a little bit unlucky. We're not able to get the expected results over the line, but I think especially when it comes down to having a couple of frustrating games, we've always then shown face in the games afterwards and shown up in an important way, especially when it comes down to elimination games. Just saw a couple of you guys in the chat ask about Manuel Neuer. He is now here and heading out to the pitch. Always great to see when the players all come out with a big smile on their face. Yeah, we heard from Matthias de Ligt earlier as well, that obviously has that experience from his time playing down in Italy, and yeah, talked quite strongly as well about Lazio's manager in Maurizio Sarri, that of course, yeah, interesting style of football. Italian football is always a little bit difficult to gauge, especially when you're already down by a goal from that first leg. However, Thomas Tuchel was also quite clear that what we need to aim for is what we did in the first couple of minutes in that game down in Italy, because yeah, the first 10-15 minutes or so were very, very strong. If we can start out attacking straight again, there is not really any time to waste. However, one good thing as well is that Bayern have also had a couple of comeback stories in that regard, where they were down by 1 goal in that first leg and ended up coming back in a very, very decisive way and playing their own game. And I'm sure that a lot of your guys' support down at the Allianz Arena will be so important in that. So let me try and catch up with a couple of your guys' messages here. Yeah, of course, for Manuel Neuer as well. I saw a couple of you guys mention him, and one of you guys also saying that he is the best goalkeeper at the moment, even at age 37. Yeah, even for him personally, it is going to be very interesting. Obviously, 114th Champions League match, and with that, well, at least with Bayern, all in total, it is 136 with his 22 with Schalke as well. But what I wanted to get to is that he is with that 114th, passing Buffon, who had 113 at Juve and is now only behind Casillas with 150 back at Real Madrid. And also one record that he could end up breaking, yes, tomorrow, is of course his I think 58th clean sheet in that matchup, and yeah, would put him also level with Casillas, but he did it in 177 games, so of course maybe still, yeah, a little bit to go to match up all with it. So yeah, Lazio's defense is a difficult one to crack. I think that comes down to Italian football in general being very focused to that. I saw a couple of you guys asking where Thomas Müller is. He is in the pack, towards the end of the pack there, and quickly overtaking everybody else, as you can see. He's always one of the faster ones when it comes down to starting the laps around the pitch here at Sebener Straße. Always fun to watch. And yeah, I think good spirits throughout from everyone. Yeah, you did find him. There you go. So yeah, I mean, what we said quite easily was, of course, that there's no wasting time in that game tomorrow. I think that's going to be the obvious part. Start strong, start with a couple of goals, and we know who's always going to be hyped to get in front of goal, and that is Harry Kane. Of course, tremendous chances on the weekend against Freiburg and some great goals against Leipzig the week prior. And of course, for him as well, when it comes down to home game stats, he's always one to get involved, because he was involved on average in at least one goal in the last 19 home games in the Champions League. 12 goals and 3 assists back for Spurs still, and now as well 3 goals and 1 assist for Bayern in this current season. Even though most of those generally came in the groups and not in the knockouts. But of course could jump up to 32 goals tomorrow in all competitions if he does get on the scoreboard. I think we're all looking forward to that. It's always magical to be down at the Allianz Arena under the floodlights. It's something that a lot of the players do mention in our post-game interviews a lot as well. Of course, you can find those on fcbayern.com. That floodlight games, especially as soon as the Champions League anthem comes on, is always something special. And that doesn't just come from the youngsters, but also from a lot of our experienced players. I think it was really great to hear from Matthijs Tell as well after that game on Friday about the importance for him. And of course, I think could have another good shot at starting in that game tomorrow. Of course, played the full 90, and I think that was great to see as well. And of course, sure, whilst Bundesliga is going to be really, really tough to catch up to Leverkusen, if there is one club in Germany that might be able to do it, it could be Bayern. But as we all know, it's not really in our own hands anymore. It does come down to Xabi Alonso's 11 or his entire squad having to make a couple of mistakes, and also other Bundesliga clubs needing to challenge them. And whilst on paper it might still be possible, of course, Thomas Tuchel and the rest of the team was quite clear that everything is going to be focused on game to game here in the Champions League. And I think we're all just looking forward to that and hoping, of course, that our run here is going to continue. And yeah, I think we talked about a couple of those stats that would support it already. One is also that, of course, at home against a lot of teams in general, but especially against Serie A opposition, Bayern have always been strong at the Allianz Arena. And at least the last 6 games that we had at the Allianz were all won against competition from Italy at a European level. And 4 of those actually did come with a 2-goal margin as well. And that's exactly what we're looking for tomorrow. Obviously, always more goals to be scored. It's important to have those runs forward, but also very, very important to keep an eye out for those counter-attacks. I think Italian teams are also well known for. And that is also something that Matthijs de Ligt highlighted earlier. You can see him in the middle of the screen just there, just now. And yeah, I think it was great to hear from him in that press conference earlier, just because, of course, he does have that insight of playing in Italy. And he also highlighted the importance of course, being strong in front, getting that pace, but also always being aware of the fact that you can, of course, always concede. And that's why it's so important to keep the strength in defense. Obviously, with that red card in the first leg, Upamecano is not going to be an option. So it's going to be interesting to see how Thomas Tuchel is going to line up in defense. I think Matthijs de Ligt will certainly be one to get on the pitch there. And yeah, we did just see a focus on Jamal Musiala. And one thing for him, of course, is that I think he has game number 30 coming up in the Champions League if he does find the game tomorrow. And is now already the most of any German player ahead of their 22nd birthday in Champions League history. So, yeah, he only turned 21 8 days ago, so he can certainly expand on that record. And he did seem quite relaxed. And I think we're all looking forward to seeing more of it. And I think, yeah, Eric Dyer could certainly be an option there. Min-jae Kim, of course. But, yeah, I'm in good spirits for that game tomorrow, and I expect the Allianz Arena to bring that same energy that Thomas Tuchel talked about, that it is going to be so important for that to transfer to the team as well. And, yeah, sure, you might lose one down in Italy when there's plenty of Italian fans, of course, for Lazio. But, yeah, all in all, I think home advantage is always something that certainly makes an impact. And where the Allianz Arena support has been very important. And remember, of course, sure, even Bayern's recent history in the past couple of matches might not have been that strong. A lot of those losses or ties were down to away games where it didn't quite transfer as much, and sometimes the pitch conditions weren't exactly stellar. But yeah, the win is certainly up for grabs, I think. And all we need is that 2-goal margin. I could certainly see that game tomorrow being one where our Bayern team is going to be holding a grudge from that first leg, and obviously want to score more than just 2, just to secure that win, but to really seal the deal. And yeah, I'd be expecting probably 3 or 4, but let's not go too far just yet. Of course, there is still a full 90 to be played. And margins are always going to be tough. And the pressure is certainly high when you have to come from the start. You can see some of the passing and dribbling drills the team is currently going through.
If I do this, you go and you lay on your here. If I push there, turn on this side. If I push there, turn on that side.
Yeah, we can hear a couple of instructions given in the background on what that drill is going to be. Yeah, I think for Gnabry it's going to be really interesting to kind of watch along. He's obviously been out for a long time now, and whilst he is participating in the practice sessions, Thomas Tuchel was quite clear earlier that they can definitely still see that he's been out for a while. But he was also quite adamant in saying that he will probably be part of the bench tomorrow. Don't think that there's any way that he's going to be starting. That would be a massive surprise. But yeah, I mean, he did have a couple of strong games before that injury, and then it was really, really rough to lose him at that stage. And same, of course, as we look to Leroy. He's been struck with a couple of different pain points, injuries, time and time again. And I think it was also quite interesting to hear from Thomas Tuchel and his impression, along with the physios around the team, of what's going to be possible. And of course, always just listening to that personal feedback as well from Leroy to hear exactly what he thinks, because he can only say how much that pain is going to be affecting him. I'd be surprised if Fonzie starts. If he does, then probably not going to be playing the full 90. He only had about 30 minutes in that game on the weekend, and of course was also out for a decent phase. So yeah, not sure. I don't have the team news. Thomas Tuchel was, of course, quite clear earlier as well that he's not going to be leaking any of that, and I'm sure that we'll hear about it roughly an hour prior to kickoff tomorrow, as it will be very dependent on this final practice session that we're, of course, currently watching. Team is going through drills, and then as soon as we will leave them, will probably be the time where Thomas Tuchel and the rest of the coaching staff will go a little bit more in depth with the squad in what the actual tactics are going to be for that game tomorrow. And then it's all about looking at it game to game, seeing what we can do, seeing how we can manage. And I think one thing as well is, even for Immobile, for Lazio, his scoring has, of course, been strong throughout, but especially in UEFA competitions in the past, most of his goals have happened at home, so he's also quite comfortable with home games and doesn't usually strike as well away from home, which I think is all going to tie down to that. That's all just stats from the past, of course, and the game tomorrow is going to be a whole lot different. One of you asking if Sané's not training, but he is certainly out here. I've seen both him and Gnabry already. And obviously going to be really interesting to see how the development is going to be throughout the summer. I think all of us are just as interested at the club as all of you guys are, what the transition in the summer is going to look like. And we're all looking forward to even more competitions next season. But first of all, it's still the focus here. It's still only March. There's still so much football to be played. I'm sure we might have lost the first leg, but the prior two meetings to that, Bayern did win. Back in 2021. There you can see the bouncing balls, with especially as the sprinklers have been going the whole time during this practice session. Going to be interesting to see as well how that is gonna affect dynamics tomorrow. Of course, down in Munich, I think same as around a lot of Germany, the weather has been mild today, and the start into this week hasn't been as warm as we had on the weekend. I think tomorrow we might get a chance of rain towards the evening. Didn't look too deep into the weather reports just yet, but I think around like 10 degrees is usually what we've had around the past couple of days as well. The weekend was quite nice around most of Germany, a lot of sun. But I doubt that's going to be too wet tomorrow. I think if even, then we get a slight drizzle. And I don't think that's going to affect the game too much throughout. Of course, as always, there's a lot more happening still once we do leave them with a live stream here at fcbayern.com. And of course, all of our social media channels are always the best way to stay up on top of the news with our Bayern squad. We have plenty of coverage still on the day tomorrow, as the team will make their way over to the Allianz Arena and then arrive ahead of that second leg. And we're all looking forward to hopefully team advancing to, of course, the next stage in the quarterfinals. And then it all starts again, seeing what two legs can bring us. So yeah, I saw a couple of you guys towards the start of our broadcast talking about potential starting 11s. I'm sure it'll be very interesting to see what Thomas Tuchel decides on with the rest of his team tonight and into the day tomorrow. However, that pretty much concludes our coverage of the final practice session ahead of tomorrow's second leg in the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League. Of course, a win necessary, 2-goal margin necessary to move on. And we're all looking forward to seeing if our Bayern team can manage. And we'll love to have you guys along for the journey if you're going to be on site at the Allianz Arena or maybe watching it on TV. And there's always our free coverage on our web radio on
Gelb. 1. Okay, jawohl.